Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Henley Business School's Job Reset Fest, where we aim to provide you with a series of initiatives, tools, techniques, world-class leaders, perspectives on the opportunities for you to reinvent yourselves, reimagine your careers, and start this brand new year afresh. 2020 wonderful is how we're starting off this year from a Henley Business School perspective. I'd like to welcome John Foster Pedley, our Dean and Director of Henley Business School Africa. John, say hello to our audience this evening before I introduce our speaker.
Can I say anything about Eddie as well?
You're very welcome to, John.
Oh, wonderful. So, hi, Eddie. I'm so pleased to see you again. Absolute magic. I'm going to, and hello, everyone here. Thank you so much for rocking up, and thank you for the team, everyone there, Carmen and Graham and Mamo and Leanne, for putting all this together, and everyone else behind the scenes. So I'm very excited to introduce Eddie. I've known Eddie for a long time. In fact, Eddie and I went to the same school, but as you can see, he was many years after me because he's the
other way around.
And I first met Eddie in, it must have been around 1990, I suppose, and I was doing my MBA at Ashridge Business School in the UK, which was a very good business school. And Eddie was a program director there doing project management, but brilliantly, and writing books. And he's done the Project Manager's Secret Handbook, which you must buy. It's on Amazon. And many other ones. All Change is that, and a whole range of things. Eddie's, somebody said to me, one of his colleagues at Ashridge said, Eddie has a mind like a planet. And I think that is entirely true. Eddie has this incredibly annoying... What's that?
Is it one of the gas planets?
No, I don't know. Yeah, well, there are bigger and smaller ones. I hadn't really thought of it that way. But Eddie's got a PhD in chemical engineering, I think it is, from Imperial College. He became a project manager. He worked in business, and he just comes out with new ideas. The annoying thing, I mean, I've just come off a podcast with a woman called Faith Popcorn. We were interviewing together. She's written a lot of books about the future. And she's been good about the future, but Eddie is too. He has this unbelievably annoying way. I'm just totally right in simple English, in ideas that I cannot tell you how many times, Eddie, I've taught your concepts and said, and this is from Eddie Obeng. So he really is an enormously capable person. Eddie left Ashridge to start. He was tired of having business school with high fixed costs and low variable costs. So, you know, big buildings. So he and I don't know when, like 30 years for anyone else, launched off and started Pentacle, the virtual business school. Everyone thought he was mad. And then it wasn't till he was flying about his second or third helicopter that they reckoned he was probably onto a good thing. So Eddie is also a very good pilot, an athlete, you know, all sorts of things. And he started doing things in education nobody did before. And apart from his ability to communicate, I call Eddie, you know, one of those sort of organic intellectuals. They're able to work across all sorts. It's actually a Hegelian concept, but you're able to work across all sorts of concepts. And also what I call a first principle thinker. There are some people who get very annoyed when somebody says, why can't you do that? Because we've never done before. And they say, oh, let me think about that. I mean, Elon Musk is one, Eddie Obeng is another. They'll go at things and they'll look at ideas and construct them from the bottom up. So Eddie really is such a pleasure, and he's also a wonderful guy. It's just wonderful to see you here. It's like welcoming an old friend. I'm so pleased to see you, and I'm really looking forward to listening to what you're doing. And Sue, Eddie works with Sue. They're a great partnership, his wife, wonderful people. And I'm really looking to have you sharing your insights. And he's a TED speaker as well. You get lots of stuff about him on the web. And he invented Cube. And Eddie started doing virtual reality education about 15 years before anyone else. So he'll tell you all about that. So over to you, Eddie, and Leanne, sorry. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
To have you here, John, and to welcome Eddie with his prestigious background, the many publications, and of course, the fabulous energy he brings to any stage that he is on. Tonight's theme, Evolve, Dominate, or Die. Eddie, with that introduction, I don't think there's anything more I can do to add, just to pass the spotlight and hand over the proverbial stage to you, for you to share your perspectives on us. What do you mean, evolve, dominate, or die? Strong words, radical words. Yes, we're in radical times right now and we need radical shifts, but evolve, dominate, or die.
Yes, yes. Thanks, Leon, and thanks, John. Thanks for John for setting the bar high, so I have to jump over it. Really looking forward to it. And everyone, hello, hi. I'm really delighted to be with you, and it's a really important time for us to rethink and reset. I mean, John explained sort of my career, but things which I'd hoped you'd ask. I gave you a link to ask me any questions you wanted, and I was hoping you'd ask me questions like, what's the truth behind all of this? Because everyone presents their nice CV. So just to tell you, I've been reinventing myself many times. I think John's alluded to that. So I trained initially as an engineer. I worked as a scientist for Shell. And then I went off to work in consultancy. And the best thing in my life, I got fired. Why? Because I didn't understand politics, and two of the bosses were fighting each other. I got caught in the middle, and I made the mistake of putting the customer first when they were looking at the bottom line. And that was really quite useful to me, because that is the type of change which we're experiencing today. Change which you did not initialize. You did not kick off change. You did not create COVID. You did not accelerate digital transformation. Some evil person somewhere else did it, and now you have to find your way through it. So if you agree with that, can you launch the question, see whether people agree? If they don't agree, then it's going to be a really short talk. Yes, you all agree. I'm just going to pretend you do. Okay, so guys, I want to try and go through this session in 5 chapters. So I've given the chapters different names so that we can sort of work our way through them. I want to start with one which I'm going to call the structure of the universe. Or when I'm doing it properly, I go, the structure of the universe. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how life, things change, organizations, countries, politics, how the whole thing works. And then I'm going to move. Yeah, you see, you're saying, no, nobody can talk about that in 50 minutes. I know that's what you're thinking. And then I'm going to move on to talking about our real new world, where we are today. And then I'm going to look at you, your choices, your opportunities, the possibilities around you. And then I'm going to help you with what I call the shortest journey. What are the few things you do so that you can reset your career, so you can rethink what you're doing, so you can continue to grow on your success? And then I'll finish by sharing what I called my future of work, not yours, but mine. I want to explain what's happening in my life. So those are the 5 chapters. I'm going to go through those if you agree. I'm sure the poll has launched. Did they agree? Yes, everyone agrees. Okay, let's get on.
I'm not sure what they're agreeing to, Eddie, but yeah, they're agreeing.
They're agreeing, yeah. Well, yes, okay, great. So I want to start just by just sharing a couple of thoughts on this first chapter called the structure of the universe. And I want to start with something rather strange. Have you all guys, I'm sure you've all heard of gravity. I know you're sort of businessy people, but you're bound to have heard of gravity, okay? So what happened was there was like an apple, and there was a chap who had a funny white wig. It's called Newton, okay? And he only lived a couple of 100 years ago. But apparently, before this chap had that apple land on his head, nobody knew that when you drop an apple, it lands on people's head. Isn't that amazing? It sounds crazy, but you wonder what people before that thought. Isn't it funny how even further back than that, they used to stand looking at the horizon, and they'd stand looking at the horizon, and they'd watch the sun. I should probably make it yellow so it looks more sun-like. Sun going across the sky, and they would say, the sun is obviously going around the earth. Do you remember those things? Okay, what they didn't realize was 2 things which are really important. The first is, you must never take your own opinions too seriously. This is crucial. You must never believe your own beliefs too seriously. I'll explain why. When they discovered that the sun did not go around the earth, but instead the earth went around the sun, Okay, people said, oh, we should have known that. It should have been obvious. My question to you, if the sun went round the earth, or if the earth went round the sun, how would the two look different? And the thing is, they would both look exactly the same. And that's our headache, that the only way we can actually work in a different environment is to review what we believe and understand and our opinions. And sometimes we discover that things have changed or they were never actually correct. So first thing you're going to have to do in this understanding of the universal laws of the world is stop loving what you think you already know. That's level number one. Number two, there are certain patterns which repeat over and over. Apples drop. So I'm going to give you what I call the laws of change. Have you noticed that when you do one thing, usually something else happens? Have you noticed that? That's called one change leads to another. That's the first law of change. So every change leads to another change. And that's why sometimes when you're leading, when you're trying to make things happen, people just look at their immediate action. They forget to look at all the corresponding actions of everyone else and what they'll need to do next. If you're going to do a decent job reset, you have to go into the future and see what it looks like from where you are, knowing that one change will lead to another. The second one I want to do is ask you, if you're busy doing lots of things and somebody adds more change, like for example, pre-COVID, you were busy working pretty hard, and then somebody added a little bit more change. What happens? Adding change to change leads to chaos. It always happens. Chaos is that state where everything's going on around you. You don't know what to hang on to, and you're probably pretty scared. Has that happened to you? Do you agree? You're allowed to respond to the launch poll. Do you agree? I think Barbara's launching the poll. She's going to be so fed up with me. Okay, so that's the second one. Adding change to change creates chaos. Remember that. The third law, which is really important, is that the only way out of chaos is to learn to transform. There's no other way out of chaos than learning, which is why I think we're in a good place, because that's what you guys are trying to do. But it's not just learning it, it's also transforming. It's changing what you do. When I say transform, I don't mean change. I always imagine, have you guys come across like butterflies, you know, the, ooh, lovely butterfly, you know that, okay. You know caterpillars, the ones which they start off as little grubs, okay. Think about the caterpillar. What are the core competencies of a caterpillar? If you were writing a job description for a caterpillar, what would you write? Must have lots of legs, can eat lots of leaves, can grow really fast, you and me. The core competencies and approaches of a caterpillar are very, very concrete. What about a butterfly? What are the core competencies and skills of a butterfly? They can fly, they look nice, they eat nectar, etc., etc. Do the competencies overlap? No, of course they don't overlap. The competencies do not overlap at all. Yet it's the same creature, and that's what transformation is. Transformation is that process of leaving behind what you have, and then through the cocoon, discovering all these new things you need to be able to do, and then doing them. So learning to transform is how we jump from chaos back into order. Last rule, the way the world works is always the same. You really understand something, that's step one. Then something comes along, a disruptor, COVID, something comes along. It changes, and all of a sudden, you don't understand anything. That's chaos, okay? If you stay where you are, knowing what you know, you can never get to the other side. You have to go through the chaos to get to the gold. So you're going to have to go into it, find out what's happening, learn, transform, and then out of that you emerge. That's the formula. And this process here is what's known as dynamically stable. Do you know spinning tops? You know, like that, spinning top like that? You know, the things that you spin at the top, like that. You know, I don't know what these, like that, okay? And they're very stable as long as they're moving. That's what dynamic stability is. It goes order case, order case, order case. And it happens on a small scale, and it happens on a large scale through history. And that's chapter one. That's the nature of life. So if you're angry about COVID, you're angry about the wrong things. If you're pleased about COVID, you're probably pleased about the wrong things, because change happens all the time. If you're really thinking, I must reset my career, no, I thought I'd do the same job for the next 40 years, that just means you're a little bit crazy. Leanne, chapter one.
Eddie, thank you for that whistle-stop tour about some very interesting concepts. I'll have a look at the chat in a moment, but when I checked a few minutes ago, there weren't any questions. But I want to ask you, because this is very interesting for me. So we're experiencing COVID as a disruptor. COVID is actually also proving to be an accelerator of a lot of transformative activities. You're suggesting that amidst all of the chaos, we project ourselves into the future to try to anticipate what this future is, and then come back to the present moment, figure out a plan in this cocoon state that is very uncomfortable and painful, in order for us to evolve. Otherwise, we're going to die, is the message I'm getting from chapter 1. How do I calm my mind and focus on this juggling act called life as unusual in order to be able to transform into this beautiful butterfly at some point in my life?
Super. That's a great question. So that's a really sort of crucial existential question. So my advice is, if you don't meditate, you should. You only need a few minutes every day. Very simple. I can teach you now. Basics. Close your eyes. Breathe, counting to start with 5 until you get better. Then you can do in for 10, out for 10. But you don't breathe through your nose. When you close your eyes and calm yourself, imagine your heart. Imagine where your heart is. And imagine the air is going straight into your heart. Not through your nose, just straight into your heart. And then out. And if you do that, it'll calm your mind. It'll last you about half a day, and then you can become chaotic again.
That's a really helpful tip, Eddie. I'm going to take you up on that. If chapter 1.
The other thing we'll talk about is how to go. Whatever you project into the future, by the way, whatever plans you make, just be aware they'll be completely wrong. Because remember, caterpillar can't actually articulate flying. Doesn't know what it is. So a caterpillar probably thinks it's a kite or something like that, which is total nonsense. So whatever your first idea is, it'll be wrong. But you need the first idea. Do you know why? Because the first idea leads you to the second idea, which is better than the first one. And guess what the second idea does? Well, guess what? It leads you to the third one, which is still better, but probably not the end game. And that's why you need to move, and you need to move quickly, and you need to move with discipline. Otherwise, you're never going to make a transition. Can I go to chapter 2?
Definitely. If you're leaving us on such a cliffhanger, you've got to go on to chapter 2.
I'm going to chapter 2 at high speed. Okay, so chapter 2 is, now you understand how the structure of life is. Don't just think about this in terms of your course. That's the structure of life for basically everything, if you think about it that way. So the next bit I want to do is I want to try and set the context of what's happened around us to make it easier. And the way I often describe this to people is, I just say, okay, let's think about the world we were living in. And if you've seen my TED Talk, I'm going to do the TED Talk in 10 seconds. That's the world. This is 2021. This is 2020. Let's go back here to 1970, maybe when you guys were born. Upper axis. Everybody now knows that the pace of change is accelerating. We know there are more people on the planet exponentially. At the same time as that, we know that everything is now digital and connected. We know that most people are living in cities. We know that there's every single organization is trying to change. So we know that the pace of change is accelerating, and it's accelerating exponentially. Nobody's going to argue with me. I'm not even going to ask if you agree. That's not the important one. The important one is, if the world is doing this, okay, changing like that, how are we learning and changing? Now, for most of us, once upon a time, we could learn faster than the world was changing. That's why we have things like annual budgets and 3-year courses, because the assumption is we can see the future. You with me? But bad news for you, most organizations, most people, their ability to learn and change has been pretty flat. So for most of us, at some stage in the past, those two lines crossed over, okay? Depends on which industry you're in, depends on which country you're in, but wherever you are, those lines crossed over. Now, that's not the interesting part. The really interesting part is we hit this world here, and you could see it. If I can find this, I'll share it with you. If I can't, it's just too bad. I want to start here where it says I have a high workload, which means I don't have time to plan or to be creative. So I don't realize how much work I'm committed to, and I've only done half. So I say yes more than is realistic. Pushing my workload, I've given me less time to plan or to do or to be creative. So I come close to deadlines other people think are important. Because they want to miss their goals, they interrupt me. So I spend a lot of my time restarting half-done work, pushing my workload. I've given me less time to plan or to do or to be creative. So now people know I'm disorganized. They can interrupt me and get away with it. And it goes round and round. Have you seen that happening to your friends and colleagues? Of course you have. Why does that happen? We all seem to have stretching and challenging targets. Things have gone south, that's life. And on top of that, we're trying to do things the way we always have done. And many of the things we do have very little effect. That's what this new world, which I was describing, does to us. If you don't recognize that pre-COVID, then I'm in real trouble. But usually I find everyone goes, yeah, I recognize that. So I'm just going to use Leanne as my sample of one. Leanne, do you recognize that?
I do indeed.
Excellent. So what happened was we were quite happily chugging along here. And we were getting to that mess of working harder, more crazily, because the change was happening. And then about here, people started talking about things like digital and stuff like that, excuse me, because they needed to transform and change. And then the big red monster with the spikes came along. Just the big red monster with the spikes. And when the big red monster with the spikes came along, that completely disrupted everything. And I'll tell you a funny story just to tell you what a mess we're in and the fact we were in a mess before. The town I work and live in is a town called Beaconsfield. And pre-COVID, I used to be amazed because this town was full of people called time travelers. They would travel through time. Honestly, they would travel through time. What they would do is they would wake up in the morning in a house, nice house, with computers and everything, internet, FaceTime to the rest of their family on the other side of the world. But they would get dressed, they would get into a car or maybe on a train or something, and they would travel for 1 hour to this place called the office, okay? It's amazing to me. And what was amazing, that the house was in the 21st century. You can imagine all the technology, ability, thought processes, family, everything. The office, they'd moved the office to the 20th century. So when you're at home, you could YouTube. Office, you couldn't do anything. You had a clunky computer you couldn't use, and so on and so forth. So why were they traveling to the 20th century? When you ask them, they say, oh, we've come into the office. You say, why? They said, oh, we've got a lot of games to play. And the games they played, the most popular ones, one was called, I think it was called email tag. They would sit in front of another computer, the old computer, and they would write an email. And I email you, I CC him, she talks to her, she emails me. They would make like 30, 40 connections. Then finally, one of them say, we have to have a meeting to discuss this. But of course, they're in different offices. So what happens? They make this thing called conference calls, another 20th century invention. Everybody phones the same number. Goes, beep, who's there? Yeah, beep, who's there, Mamo? Beep, who's there, Eddie? Okay, my definition of a conference call is one person talking and 12 people just continuing to do their emails. So these are the games they would play all day. And then at night, they would travel back to the 21st century. And they were doing this, and it all seemed to make sense to them until the horrid COVID monster came along. You have to ask yourself, how come we didn't know we didn't need to go to an office every day for a good 30 years, in fact, good 70 years since they invented the internet? Why was that? You remember I started about the fact you mustn't take your own opinions too seriously. You mustn't keep your beliefs of how businesses work or what you should do too seriously, because sometimes you're just wrong and sometimes the world changes around you. And if you take your opinions too seriously, you become disconnected from reality. But when you're disconnected from reality, nobody rings a bell. You don't know. You think you're still in reality. You think everyone else is crazy, but no, it's you. And that's why these people are time travelers. So as we go through that, we realize that in this world here, the chaos of it is also our opportunity. If you've read any children's stories, whenever they have dragons, where does the dragon sit? The dragon sits on top of the gold. It's a metaphor to tell you that your future, your opportunity, your job reset is under the dragon. Our next chapter will be, how do we get to the dragon? How do we slay the dragon? How do we take the gold? Leanne, over to you.
Thanks so much, Eddie. I have two comments coming through from participants on this call. From Carly Furi. Carly's stating the obstacle is the way. We'd love to get your thoughts on that, Eddie. And linked to that, Motabang is saying, is there such a thing as good and bad chaos? Does transformation need to come from chaos?
Yeah, okay, so just quick questions. It's not so much even an obstacle. It's it would be nice if it was an obstacle, excuse me, because you could focus on it. The thing about chaos is you don't even understand the question. So you don't actually even know that it's an obstacle. And that's the real challenge with chaotic systems, that you have no clue at all what's going on. So yes, you could treat it as chaos being the obstacle being the way, but I think it's even worse than that. I think it's not even so clear. In fact, there's a chap called Brian Rose, and he describes it beautifully. And I learned a lot from using his very simple message, which is whenever you're unsure, go where the fear is. It's a really useful little sort of metric, little like a Geiger counter to find where the radiation is, but go where the fear is. Whatever's terrifying you the most, that's where the chaos is. That's where the dragon is. And remember, the gold is always under the dragon. In terms of good and bad chaos, bad news. All good things come from the chaos. Okay, so back to the cycle of life. The spinning wheel. Imagine you built a business and it was really successful. You were selling, I don't know, chickens to people for lunch. And you just kept selling more chickens, more chickens. I don't know why I'm coughing. Selling more chickens. So you build this big hierarchy with chicken supervisor, big structured company. Everyone knew the rules of the company. More money is made. It becomes totally rigid, but highly successful. And then somebody starts selling turkeys for lunch. Okay? The only way your success can move to a new success is through chaos. Every successful system has a tendency to lock in, to atrophy, to become quite fascist. Every system, it does that. It's a natural thing to happen. And the only way you move to the next generation is to break it down and do it again. So just two thoughts on that. One, if you've ever played the game Monopoly, Leanne, do you know the game Monopoly?
Very well.
Start, everyone has the same amount of money. Always at the end, one person has all the money. Why does that happen every time? I mean, doesn't it seem strange to you? You all start with the same amount of money, equality, equity. You should be able to play and you should end up with a lifetime of equality and equity. But someone always wins. Why? Because in complex systems which are interdependent, variability allows things to accumulate. If you hit zero, you can't go the other side, but you can always go up. And that's why it happens. It's a natural phenomenon. There's a story about a Native American tribe where the way they solved this was every few years, they would basically, the richest people in the tribe would give away their wealth, their tools, their hammers to everyone else, just to become poor again so that the tribe could continue. So that's another thing. The bad news for us these days is that wealth is no longer physical. So even if we try to dream of a world of equal wealth, wealth is no longer physical. One form of wealth, for example, is all the friends you have. One form is all the contacts you have in digital space. You can't give your LinkedIn and Facebook contacts to anyone else. So we're always going to end up with inequity, and then the creative bit is to figure out how to do it. But every system becomes really quite overbearing, and then you have to break it to get to the next goal. Does that help?
Absolutely. Thank you, Eddie.
Great. Next chapter?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this chapter, I think I called it the choices and opportunities. So I've already highlighted the importance of going where the fear is. At the moment, I'll give you two stories which are quite quick. So at the moment, one of the organizations I've been working with is in Malaysia. And it's a group of people who run events. And they asked me to speak at a big conference for them. So it's events organizers, their conference. They asked me to speak at their conference. And so I turned up and I spoke at their conference. It was a webinar and I finished. And during the webinar, I said, you guys, you do know that I run super real environments with avatars. I could easily have run this whole conference for you. And we could have sat and chatted and had breakouts and basically mimicked what you do in your normal events. Now you imagine with an offer like that, they'd eat your hands off. No, you haven't understood human beings. Three things about human beings, okay? Number one, remember the comment about their opinions, okay? They said to me point blank, it's not possible to have an interactive virtual experience. Okay, so I said, okay, why not? I'm sure you know best. Okay, so that's one. The second is human beings are really rubbish at everything to do with change of this particular category. Have you noticed how great all your own ideas are? Have you noticed how rubbish all the ideas everyone else has? Why? Why are yours great? It's all to do with your your neurological processes. You have a piece of software in your brain where when you come up with an idea, it makes you fall in love with your idea to turn it into more food. It's a hunter-gatherer thing. Now, why is that interesting? Because that means all your ideas, however bad they are, great. But you have another piece of software, your amygdala, which has this particular job, which is to stop you getting eaten by wild animals. So any change which comes from outside is perceived as a threat, and then you run away from it. Your brain shuts down, you run away from it. So it was my fault that these guys didn't understand it. It wasn't their fault because I just told them. I should have let them invent it themselves. So one thing which is crucial is you're going to have to invent for yourself. The tool I use for that is I draw up usually the chart which I've called Evolve, Dominate, and Die. And I'll give you the link after that. But it's a really simple chart. On one side, you write down all the things you did to be successful, both as an organization, as an individual. I call that the old world, the other side of my two curves. Then on the other side, you write down the new world. What are all the things you now need to do to be successful? And in there, you'll start to see there's a different list coming up. That's one of your areas of opportunity. Possibilities, you find another way. When you want to find possibilities, you look for what I call obnoxious customers. You look for people who are asking for things which seem unreasonable. You can't do them. Why should we do it like that? So somebody says, why can't we have the training courses instead of having our course during the day? Why can't we have it in the middle of the night because it's much cooler? I don't know. They say something. And you say, you stupid person. Okay? They are showing you possibilities. But often because they surprise you and your amygdala turns on, you sometimes just turn them away and you don't actually deal with them as you should. But that really is the secret with trying to make sure that, that you can find opportunities and possibilities. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds of thinking time to try to think about things people have said to you recently where you've gone, oh, that's stupid. I was saying to my cousin, I'm actually not in the UK where I live, I'm in Ghana because my mom wasn't well. So I came to visit and I was saying to my cousin on the phone, I said, you know, I don't understand this COVID thing. It's like the fear switched everybody's brain off and we've stopped being creative. I said, if it was me, if I was 30 years younger, by now I would have designed, do you know space suits? The ones people use for going to space? Yeah, like they have a glass helmet so they can see. Can you imagine that? So imagine a glass helmet, but mesh, so you can see, you can breathe, but the bottom half is a little bit more dense with the mesh, so that you can't get any particles out and infect anyone. And then a full body suit, very stylish, very lightweight, so nice material, with gloves, so that you can touch things safely. I said, I would have designed this, I would have mass produced it, I would have branded it COVID safe, and everyone on the planet will be wearing it and going about their business without lockdown. It's a shame I'm so old. And he said to me, oh, that wouldn't work. I said, why? He said, you would look funny. I said, you would look funny, but so would the other people. So if they're all looking funny, nobody looks funny. Have you not noticed we all look funny anyway? Have you not noticed you have two eyes and a nose? So again, think about that. This is your thinking time. Leanne will come back with some comments, but think about opportunities and possibilities. And let's stop the share. And if I just share with you quickly the Evolve, Dominate, and Die, which I was talking about, 2 columns, past success left, future success right. You have a few seconds, go.
So Prof, while everybody's reflecting and working through these prompts, something that you said was sufficiently scary but profound at the same time. You suggested that we work towards the place that the fear emanates from.
Yes.
You said face the fear. And in facing the fear, you also recognize the neurochemistry of our brains shutting down to
Correct.
be able to kick into self-preservation mode.
Oh, you're
And
so brilliant.
the
Absolutely.
the paradox of what you're saying is if you were 30 years younger, you would see the innovation opportunities in
Oh, no,
this.
no, it's just I'm busy. I've got so many other projects. I haven't got any time to go and make money. That's my problem. So my problem is not that I can't seize it, but yeah, I can't see it. I have no time. I've got so many projects. My virtual world cube, because of this working from home and stuff, is rocketing. I'm having to employ new stuff. I have no time for it. But here's the thing, you know, when people go to war, how do they train them? You know, because in the First World War, they just sent people off to war. And the first time they were shot at, they didn't know what to do, so they ran away because it was a surprise. They'd never been shot at before. The first time you're shot at, it's a shock. So in the training, what they do is they let them run around, they shoot over their heads. So they've been shot at. So they know what the sounds sound like. Now their brain doesn't see a shot as change, it sees it as normal. So one of the things which we do is in going into the future and thinking, it lets you assume what's going to happen. When it happens, it's not a surprise. So that's how I get around that particular barrier. I always encourage people to think into the future. And I'm going to share with you a tool called Fix It Now, which lets you avoid some of the big risks and therefore get stuff out faster. Let's go to the next chapter. Everyone happy with the next chapter?
Yeah, and I think that will help with the last comment that came through from Priscilla. Priscilla's
Yes.
saying, surely you can assess or manage risk and build resilience into your systems and help minimize chaos in the context of you understanding the complexity of the problem and understanding the drivers for the change as well as the variables that are at play. And I imagine you're going to pick that up in the next chapter.
Yeah, the secret is the more complex a problem, the more simple your solutions have to be. So you don't do all of the different things at the same time. You don't do managing risk, engaging people. You do one, then the next, then the next. You focus frequently with a decent drumbeat. If you try and do all of them at the same time on a complex issue, having a complex solution, you will become overwhelmed. You will not be able to communicate it to your teams, and they won't understand what you're trying to achieve. So that's why you always break things in small bits. So, okay, just a little bit of teaching. I'm going to use one of my classrooms. So that's where we're going to go. So this is one of the campuses on Cube. As you can see, typical campus, you know, teaching rooms, conference centers, etc. So the image on the left is the physical one, and the other one on the right is the virtual one. And I'm just going to turn around, and this is a classroom, typical classroom. As you can see, we have a nice view of the city outside. It's not a real view. Okay, but I want to ask you, I mean, John gave you the idea of what I do, but any idea when I started building virtual worlds? The answer is I started building them. I don't know whether you want to launch the poll or not. See whether anyone can guess, whether they were listening to John or not, I wonder. So basically I'm spending my time in virtual worlds, and that was a classroom, typical classroom which I work in. So let me just walk you through these different areas. The first one is what I call Fix It Now. I'll tell you a story to go with it. The story is quite important because if you remember the story, you never have to be afraid again about anything. Has everyone here seen at least one science fiction film? You're allowed to say no, nod, say yes, shout loudly. I'll hear you on the other side of the world. Okay, so if you've seen a science fiction film, let me try this one on you. Always they involve aliens. What's the job description of an alien? Alien's job, travel millions of light years, come to Earth, one job only, to eat everybody. That's their job. That's what they do for a living. So I want you to think about that process. What happens in the films? Always in the films, they run towards the alien spaceship. This is an alien spaceship which has come and eat you. Why? Because they ignore the risk. What they should do is they should actually go through a process which is very simple. They should go, oh my goodness, that's an alien spaceship, run away. They never, ever do that. They run towards it. They totally ignore the big danger signs, which are all over it, okay? And then, of course, when they arrive at the spacecraft, outside it's small, inside it's huge, they're all the same. There are three of them. Instead of them staying together, they say, let's split up and search, okay? Because the aliens are hiding. So one of them goes, and then the one who sets off on their own, they always meet an alien, a big, horrible alien, red and green, okay? Now, they come with laser blasters, so they should really shoot the alien. They never do. They call their friends, they say, there's an alien, it's big and that, and then they get eaten. And their friends say, where are you? So they come running. Finally, they find the alien, but the aliens had a good meal. So what do? They don't kill it. They take it back to the laboratory for study. So they lock it into the kitchen or whatever.
Eddie, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Let somebody.
I'm so sorry to interrupt
Yes.
you, Eddie, but I desperately want to see the graphic of the alien that you are drawing, because that's.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. I thought I was sharing it.
Yeah, I just want to
Guys,
see.
I'm running to Zoom because I spend my time on Cube. I'm sorry about that. Oh, I did. You guys missed. I did some great drawing. This is the being scared bit. That's the alien spacecraft. This is the alien eating the person.
Right.
This is the kitchen where they're locked up, okay? And then this, I was just going to say, they get somebody to monitor and to watch the alien. Of course, they never do a good job. The alien escapes, grabs out of the throat, kills them, and escapes and hides, eating everyone. And finally, the only way to get rid of the alien is to blow up the whole space station, which is what we call Plan B, okay? Now, guys, that 5-stage process, this is how you can go confidently where you fear. Think about the fear. Go where the fear is. Step 1. Look for the fear. See what it is. What am I worried about? Step 2. If you can fix it immediately, fix it. Do it. If it's about talking to somebody, talk to the person. Go and do the thing you're scared of. If you can't fix it, then contain it. So say, okay, I don't have to talk to 12 people. I'm going to talk to 2. I don't have to worry about losing my whole life load. I'm only going to invest my car. So contain it. That's 3. Then keep an eye on it because you want to monitor it in order to be able to learn. Really important. And if it's a disaster, you must already have Plan B, which will save you from the risks you took. So this is how you get rid of the fears as you approach them. It's called Fix It Now. And it's a very systematic method. And if I'm really good, I will get it right this time. I did it. No flies on me. Did I get it? Fix it now. At the bottom, identify the fear, kill it now, limit it. If you say, keep an eye on all plans. Put your own fears, put the fears of your stakeholders. That's step 1. You got the opportunity from your reflection. Now you're no longer afraid of it. But will it be any good as business? This is the question we have to try to ask ourselves. So to find out whether it's going to be good at business, you have to do yet another thing. It's very simple. In the old days, if you did nothing, nothing happened. But now doing nothing is not really an option. It's not going to solve the problem for you. So what you do is you do something called a gap leap. And I'm going to show you how you do it. It's another one of these weird tools which I have. You do it, as I said, always do a little bit at a time. Don't try and do everything all at the same time. That's why I'm breaking it into bits for you, okay? So let's have a look at the gap leap and see if I can find it. You get a piece of paper, and what you do on the piece of paper is really simple. Okay. Piece of paper, you draw on it 1 horizontal line, halfway down, then one vertical line, 2 horizontal lines, okay? That's it. In the middle bit here, you write gap. What's a gap? A gap is the difference between how things are and how you'd like them to be. I do not have a really good way of making sure my business grows. My job can survive me. Whatever it is, a gap, not an objective, not an objective. We're in chaos. In chaos, if you have objectives, you're crazy. You have to have systems in chaos, not goals. So then you say, if I don't do this, what will happen? Write down all the things which will happen if you don't do anything. Then write, if I could fix it, what will happen? Write all the good things which could happen and some of the bad things. Then finally, you go to number 4. Why have I not done it yet? Because I was afraid, because I haven't talked to my boss. Now, by the time you finish this diagram, in the bottom here is your entire plan, your scope of work. Remember, you're a caterpillar. It's probably wrong, but you have to do it anyway. Now, to make a business plan of this, just put the cost, emotional and financial, of doing nothing. Put the cost of, if fixed, emotional, financial, subtract one from the other, divided by the cost of action. You have your payback. So guys, that's number 2. Now you know how to do it. Then the third step, when you come to action these, just get on with it. So I'm going to stop there because the last thing I wanted to do was to start talking about the future of my life in the last chapter. So can I pass back to Leanne and see, I've given you 3 tools. There's a fourth one called sticky steps, but I'll put that on the website for you guys to do. Leanne, questions, comments, thoughts. Am I shaking the tree? Am I getting people to move?
Eddie, you are creating quite a lot of impetus for people to think. I think one of the things
I hope so.
help the questions to come through. People have obviously seen the tools that you have flashed up, but I think a little more time for them to engage with those tools offline via the link that was provided to you by Henley Business School when you registered for this session would be great for you to download and for you to reflect on in your own time. In the meantime, Eddie, you're taking us through a whirlwind journey of disruption, of business as unusual, of transformation, of working through fear, of having the relevant tool sets to be able to get through it. How were you able to get through it? And what are some of the learnings from your journey that the rest of us could learn to expedite ours?
Yeah, so just very quickly, because I want to talk about future of my life, which will answer some of the questions, which are, I told you I got fired. That was really good because then I went straight into chaos and I learned how to deal with chaos at that point. I got it. You've got to learn to transform. Nothing else works. You can't go back to the old one. You've got to do it. That's one. The second is people will tell you fast failure. In fact, one of my TED Talks about failing. Try not to fail. It's really painful. It's better you're successful, but failure can happen. Okay, and you have to treat it as a good thing because you're learning to transform. Remember, the first time the caterpillar jumped out of the tree and flapped his legs, it was not successful. Okay, so that's what to remember. In terms of actually transforming, if it's possible, collaborate with other people. It's always better to be with other people through change because you have much better emotional support. And remember, help them to come up with the solutions. Let me just move to the last bit because I just want to share with you a day in my life. So about 15 years ago, I decided when I left Ashridge Business School to set up, as John said, a virtual business school. So get rid of the office and so on. In those days, there was no technology to allow it. So I had to build my own technology to run courses. And you saw the campus, which I used. So this is a day in my life. If I can find it, yes, there we go. So I'm just going to go through a slideshow really quickly of a day in my life. So this is my desk. This is where I work. I have three huge screens. The one on the left is the one where I run internal business. So on the campus, I'm on the Pentacle campus. That's our business, Pentacle, the virtual business school. So I can see all the other, my colleagues and all the people who work with us. In the middle one, I'm usually using for teaching, and the one on the right is for other things like emails and making documents and stuff like that. So this is my day. I'll get in quite early in the morning. I start always by hitting the button of Cube. Is this funny little Cube symbol? I look for everyone. I see everyone on Cube, all the thousands of people or whatever who are logged in. Usually I'll say hello, good morning. I'll chat to all of them. It is so important to be connected with people, to say hello, to chat to them, not to wait for meetings, especially in this COVID world. If you can do it, that's really great. So I would say hello to them. Sometimes they send me messages in private chats as well. So I'll talk to them. And then I go into the Cube lobby. And here I'm in Pentacle. Can you see just below that cloud? It says Pentacle lobby. I'll go to my cubicle. I have my own office on Cube. So I have quite a nice office, but it looks a bit like my real office, as you can see. It only has two screens. You can see on the left one, I'm looking at LinkedIn. And on the right one, right one is LinkedIn, left one is email. So I'm in a virtual world. Think about this, doing my emails in a virtual world. I'll just say it again, okay? Standing at a real desk with three screens, okay? But I'm in the Pentacle campus, so that's what I'm doing. Then I would probably see what's happening in the outside world, do some quick stock med, and then over here, I think I have to go and do some teaching. So I'm going to one of the rooms. So this list in the middle is a list of cubicles. So I hit the button and it lets me choose the cubicle, loads it, usually takes about a minute, up to a minute. And then once it's in, I'm into what's called the core team. So this is where my management team work. This, where it says September 2020, that's like our notice board of all the events which we're running. So I go close to the notice board, I hit browse. It's super reality. So everything you can see has a functional menu behind it. So I hit browse. Once I hit browse, it lists for me all the different clients, the Cube at Work, City of London, et cetera, Scottish government, all, and I can go and find out, and everyone can post, because we work out loud, what the latest news is. So there are no internal emails in our organization. We don't need them. Why would you need them? We're all the same organization. And then I've come out into the middle screen because I think I had to go and do some teaching. So I've gone to another office. I have an office also in this area, but you can see for there I put a nice window. I didn't put the big green chair because I'm going to meet clients there. I don't want them to think it's all about me. So I've got a nice comfortable chair for the client instead. And I'm meeting the client to talk about what they're doing. Over here, I have one of my tools, it's called Here to There. We're talking about COVID, so we're talking about the Emperor's New Clothes. So I'll just go through that really quickly. So you get a sense, I'm going through the day, I'm putting things up for them. I go to another tool, 5 Ps, to help them work out the purpose of what we're doing, the principles and so on. Then we do an update using this Here to There tool, performance tool, catch up, then back to my team. So you see my whole day is spent going from one place to another. This is me. I wear 2 headsets, the one on the outside, and you see the cables on the inside. Because I'm working 2 different places, I can be in 2 places in the world at the same time, enjoying myself with people I like. And then this is me going to work on a conference, which we're doing some teaching. Look, I was teaching the same curves you guys learned. There you go. I was teaching that to someone else. Big conference area, planning the conference in the conference area, then lunch. Working more on the conference, then I go and do some weights. You ask me how I stay resilient, exercise. Weights are good, especially for females, because they don't make you sweaty, but they do keep you fit. And then a little bit more time, and so on. So this is my day, tea in the afternoon on the lawn. I live in the UK, we never get blue skies. On Cube, the sky is always blue. I'm stopping there, Leanne. You only got a few more minutes to close. If I've done a good job, I've taken you through the 5 chapters. You understand the structure of the world. You know to go where your fear is. You know how to find opportunities. You know how to turn them into reality. And you can see my world. I've stopped.
That is beautiful. Professor Eddie Obeng, thank you so much for such a refreshing talk today. I don't know about people on the chat, but I am entirely ignited from this conversation. 2 things that stood out for me. Yes, you're right. There aren't any blue skies in the UK for more than 4 hours at any one time, unless you're going through a decade-long heat wave. But I think the statement that really stood out for me, which I will carry through in my career, is that you could be sitting in a corner of an organizational chart in an office amongst 20,000 other employees. And unless you're connected to the internet, you could well see yourself as a global CEO of a multinational organization. And that perspective is something I'm incredibly grateful to you for sharing, because that's what it's about. It's about seeing COVID, opportunity, and the accelerator.
Exactly. And just remind everyone, because we're now really moving to digital, the country you live in no longer correlates to the countries you work in.
Yeah.
So that's important to remember. And there was a Dilbert cartoon where they were doing Zoom, and then the phone went, the guy said, hang on a second, I've got to take that call. It's from the other company who also think I'm working full time for them.
I love it. Which explains the dual ear sets, right? Yeah. Professor Obeng, Louise is asking for last words, 10 seconds, last words to inspire and motivate everybody and to get them leaving on a high this evening.
Guys, we can do it. You can do it. You can see it's done. You can see I live in the future, and I've been doing that for a while. I'm not that special. You guys are much more energetic, young, and dynamic than I am. No reason you can't do it, number 1. Number 2, if you're going, oh, I'll wait till COVID goes away. What if it takes 20 years? You'll be an old person by then, okay? So just get on. Let's create the world. And remember, when you fix the world for yourself, guess what? You fix it for everyone else. So thank you very much.
The ripple effect. Thank you, Professor Obeng. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this evening session, please join us again for tomorrow's Job Reset Fest. Topic for tomorrow is meta-skilling the key to being the best skilled employee for the future of work. And we're going to be joined by Dr. Naima Pasha from Henley Business School, UK, starting at 6:30 tomorrow. For those of you that are able to stay this evening, Professor Obeng, if you are able to stay for a few more minutes for Q&A.
Absolutely.
Amazing. For everybody else that joined us this evening, have a lovely evening. If you do have to leave us right now, thank you, and we look forward to connecting with you again. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. All the best.